Just because someone might have trouble properly seeing the board and pieces doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to play the game. If given the opportunity, a person who has a visual impairment can prove to be an excellent player. And who knows, the next Grandmaster can be one such individual. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Chess. With this episode, we will be going over the rules for the blind and visually impaired players for chess. With everything addressed in previous episodes, we'd like to discuss how to go about playing the game of chess with blind and visually impaired players. With that of competitive play that exists between that of sighted and visually impaired individuals, that is, those that are legally blind, either player can demand the use of two boards where the sighted player will use a normal board, while the visually impaired player will use a specially constructed board. With this specially constructed board, they will have to possess the following requirements, which consists of the board being at least 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters in size, the black squares being slightly raised, a securing aperture be present for each square, and each piece possessing a peg that allows said piece to fit within the securing aperture. Each piece of their set will also have to be that of the Staunton design, which is the standard design for the chess pieces, with the black pieces being specially marked. When a player performs a move, they are to clearly announce it, which is then to be repeated back to the initial player, followed by performing said move upon their given chessboard. If a pawn is to be promoted, then the player will have to announce which piece they choose to replace it. And to help make the announcement as clear as possible between the players, it is suggested that they use the following names instead of their corresponding letter. Anna represents A, Bella represents B, Caesar represents C, David represents D, Ava represents E, Felix represents F, Gustav represents G, and Hector represents H. When it comes to that of the ranks, going from white to black, the equivalent German number is to be used unless otherwise decided by the arbiter. Eins represents 1, Zwei represents 2, Drei represents 3, Vier represents 4, Fünf represents 5, Sechs represents 6, Sieben represents 7, and Acht represents 8. German is also used when it comes to that of castling, with Lange Rashad representing long castling and Kurze Rashad representing short castling. When it comes to that of each given piece, the International Chess Federation also allows German to be used for each of the pieces. With that said, we decided to skip that information at the time being since we're doing this series in English, not Deutsch. When it comes to that of touching a piece for the visually disabled, it is when said player removes said piece from its securing aperture. A move is also considered to have been made when 1. A capture has occurred with the captured piece being removed from the board on said player's turn, 2. A piece has been placed into a different securing aperture, or 3. The move has been announced. Only then will the opponent's clock start up once again. Regarding that of rules 2 and 3, when it comes to that of players without visual impairment, the normal rules are considered to be valid. When it comes to that of the chess clock for the visually disabled, a specially constructed one is admissible for said player, and it should be able to announce both the time and the number of moves to the disabled player. With that said, an alternative is allowed in the form of an analog clock that possesses the following features. First, a dial is to be fitted that possesses reinforced hands where every 5 minutes have been marked with a single raised dot, while every 15 minutes are marked by 2 raised dots. And second, a flag that is able to be easily felt, although care is to be taken so that it can be arranged in such a manner where the disabled player is to feel the minute hand during the final 5 minutes of the full hour. When it comes to that of keeping track of the game's score, the visually disabled player will have to keep track using either braille, longhand, or a recording device. If a slip of the tongue occurs when it comes to the announcement of a given move, which is a very real possibility, it will have to be immediately corrected as well as before the starting of the opponent's clock. If the situation arises where different positions arise upon the two game boards, then the arbiter is to be notified for assistance, along with game scores of both players being consulted. If both game scores match, then the player who recorded the correct move but performed the incorrect movement will have to adjust their piece so that it corresponds to the move that has been recorded upon the scorecards. But if the scorecards are found to be different, then the pieces are to be retraced to the point where both scorecards match, with the arbiter readjusting the player clocks accordingly. On top of this, the visually disabled player has the right to have an assistant to make any and all of the following duties when necessary. First is to perform the movement upon the opponent's board that was made by either player. Second is to announce the movement of both players. Third is to keep score for the visually disabled player, along with starting their opponent's clock. Fourth is to inform the visually disabled player the number of moves that have been completed and the time that has been completed by both players, but only at the request of the disabled player. Fifth is to claim the game in situations where the time limit has been exceeded, along with informing the arbiter when the sighted player has touched one of their pieces. And sixth is to carry out the necessary formalities when the game has been adjourned. If the visually disabled player doesn't take advantage of an assistant, then the sighted player can make use of one who is to carry out the first and second duties that were just mentioned. And if a visually disabled player is paired off with that of a hearing-impaired player, then an assistant will have to be used. So with that said, that is what you need to know for the blind and visually impaired players for chess. With that taken care of, we can start talking about chaturanga. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.